In this video, we will talk about open source and why you should care about open source. Not only improve your technical skills, but also your communication and networking skills so you can get the jobs and client and money that you deserve. We will cover Git and the platform GitHub and go through all those tabs you see across the top. We will also talk about how you can find open source projects to contribute to, how to contribute using the GitHub UI, how to make your issues and pull requests in your GitHub profile pop so you can stand out from the crowd, how you can make money from open source directly and indirectly. Hi, my name's Eddie, and I've been a full stack developer for over 15 years. I have a YouTube channel that focuses on open source. If that sounds interesting to you, the link is in the description below. Head over to my channel and subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post a video. In this video, we will start off with the basics and then we'll go through to the more advanced features. If you want to skip ahead, there are the timestamps in the description below. Don't skip just yet. Even if you're an experienced developer, I'm sure there are some tips you'll pick up in the more basic sections. And if you have any tips or any feedback to anything I say, please leave a comment below and I will reply. Open source is social coding. So it's like social media, but on steroids. On places like Instagram, people can like your pictures, they can comment and reshare. On GitHub, people can not only star your project, comment on your code, fork your project to share it, but they can also contribute back. They can make improvements. We can stand on the shoulder of giants on other awesome projects to make even better projects. And then we can contribute features and bug fixes back to that original project. Even if you're not contributing to open source just yet, I'm sure you're using open source projects. Why you should care about open source? Because you're probably using a lot of open source. If not all the tools and projects you're using are probably open source. And it's great that you're using these amazing open source tools, but they're only there and available because of people like you who contribute to them. And you may think, oh, I'm not an expert to contribute to any of the big projects like React, for example. But your fresh pair of eyes can add so much value to any project. Have you ever been reading some documentation and you've read step 1, okay, I've done that, step 2, done that, step 3, oh, how did I get there? I think there's a missing step. By you adding that step and contributing back will not only allow you to improve your documentation skills, to improve your communication skills, to network with other developers, future employers. It also help other people in the community. It will also probably help you as well further down the line when you come to use that project again and you forget about that step, you check the documentation and it helps you. That's happened to me multiple times. In addition to that, it's becoming more and more important. Companies, recruiters are now looking on GitHub to find people, and they're not looking for the best coders. A lot of them are actually looking for the right attitude. Are people getting involved in the conversation? Can they collaborate with other people? Can they give constructive criticism back to say someone's work, but also be supportive at the same time? These are skills in addition to coding. And that's really important. It's what a lot of these companies look for now. So do get involved in the discussion on GitHub. And I'm going to take you through how you can do that. On other platforms, for example, like LinkedIn, you can write anything you want. This is why CVs and LinkedIns aren't that useful. GitHub is becoming more and more useful. And you don't have to contribute massive amount of work, little and often. It's like brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth every morning and evening. If you miss one morning or one evening, your teeth aren't going to fall out. They're not going to go black. But over time, your teeth stay healthy. The same thing with open source. Do a little and often. Therefore, your GitHub profile stays healthy. And then people can discover you from different projects that you've contributed to, other conversations that you've got involved in. You're probably more familiar with this process on places like Twitter, how you discover people and how people discover you. GitHub is just the same. And it's a great way to get discovered from your future employer or your future client. So I've mentioned Git and GitHub. Let's talk more about that. Let me start with Git because that underpins GitHub. There are many source control management systems, but Git is on steroids. It not only has a traditional save points where you can save your work as you go along each time you're happy with it. Therefore, if you make a mistake, you can go back to your previous save point. And source control management systems also have branching, so you can create a copy of the work and prototype, create spikes, practice, do certain things and still have those save points, but only bring them back in for the rest of the team to use once you're happy and ready for it. The big main advantage of Git is it's very efficient, very fast. It's distributed, which means you can work offline and just reconnect when you get internet connection again later on. And you can do things like rebase, which is like rewriting history. So Git is a great tool for collaboration. So what is GitHub? GitHub is built on top of Git and gives you so many powerful features, which means you can use Git via their web platform, but also you get issue tracking, you get project boards that are like Trello boards, you get continuous integration, which they call GitHub Actions. I'm going to show you that all shortly. You know what? Let's go to my computer and dive straight into it. So now let's head over to GitHub. Now you can see you've got GitHub behind me. This is my profile page on GitHub. And I've got a customized profile page, which you can do by creating a repository the same name as your username. You can see some of my highlights, some of my achievements. I'm a GitHub star, the organizations that I belong to, sponsors that I have, and the people that I sponsor. What you're probably more used to seeing is the pinned repositories and your green activity bar. And this is what companies use to discover you. That's why it's really important to be part of an organization, be part of a community, and to contribute to projects. So let's pick a project and let's contribute to it so I can show you how you can easily make a contribution to other projects. As we're on freeCodeCamp's YouTube channel, I thought it'd be important to pick a freeCodeCamp project. So let's start from the top and we'll work our way down the page and then we'll make a contribution. As you can see at the top right, we have people that are watching the project. That means for every change that happens on the project, they'll get a notification. And the notification depends on how they set up their notifications in their account. So for some people it'll be email, some people it'll be notifications. Stars are like people who have favorited the project, like bookmarked it. And they'll get notifications in their GitHub feed. So not notifications that they've been tagged, but notifications in their GitHub feed. Forks are people who have made a copy of the project into their own account so they can make changes. And we're going to do that shortly, so stay tuned. And then we have the tabs along the top. We have code, and that's the default tab that you land on. And you can see the code underneath, and you can navigate around between the code. You can see the files. You've also can switch between branches. Branches are taking a copy of the code base and allowing you to make changes to that without affecting everybody else on the project. So we usually use branches a lot that are short-lived for a feature branch, a spike branch, a bug fix branch, and they'll get merged into the mainline branch via a pull request when it's been reviewed. Tags and releases allow you to create a save point in your code base that can never change. Similar to a commit, a release or a tag is higher up in that it will contain multiple commits. And you usually name them like V0 1.2. We can add a file. We can do a lot through the GitHub UI. I can even open it in code spaces, which is a new beta feature coming out in GitHub, which allows you to have your entire development environment in the browser or in VS Code locally, but actually communicating with a server on GitHub. That means you don't have to worry about installing Node a certain version or Python a certain version. It will just work, which is a game changer. So when that comes out any day now for everybody else, it is going to be really awesome. It's really going to lower the barrier to everyone contributing to open source. And then we can see at the top the last commit that happened. It was 5 hours ago. We can even click on the Git hash and see the exact changes that happened at that point. So hopefully you're seeing how powerful Git and GitHub are. And also we can see the commit. The commit is the entire history of changes. And we can see who made it. This is why it's important to give your commit an informative, descriptive, but concise, so short title. So when looking through the history, it is really easy to see what happened. And then you can find the one that you want, and then you can click on the Git hash where you can actually go see more details about what changed. When making a commit message, don't forget you can also give a description if you want to add more information. If you want to make changes to your project or somebody else's, I think it's really important for you to raise an issue. An issue is an action point or starting a discussion, saying to someone, there's a typo in your project, or there's missing documentation, or there's a bug. This is how I found it, and these are the changes that I think should be made. And that's really important. The changes could come from you or from someone else. That's the next step. But raising an issue helps you get that green square on your GitHub profile. And also adding comments, so replying to issues is really a great way to get involved with a project into the community. Get on their radar. So when they are looking to hire people, they're going to look at people who contribute to the project. So you'll be first on their list. This is the issue section on GitHub. And it's a great way to start the conversation on your idea or the bug you found or the enhancement that you want. And not only that, it's a great way for you to get involved in the conversation on other issues. So do have a search, do filter the issues. For any issues you raise, you still get a green square on your GitHub profile. Issues have labels, and the great thing about these are if you want to fix a bug, or if you want to find something more challenging where help is wanted, or if you want to find one that's a bit easier, another label to look for is good first issue. And you can click on these and it filters them. So now they've been filtered down. But let's say if I want to create a new issue, I hit on new. And some projects have templates. That means they'll pre-populate the description field. Let's pick one for example. Bug report. As you can see in the description, it's pre-populated and it's asking for certain bits of information. If the issue you're raising doesn't fit into any category, for example, like this video, then you can open a blank issue. And it looks like this. And if you're not too familiar with Markdown yet, don't forget you have got these helpers along the top. And it's always important to add a description. And then when you've written something in the description, you can preview it to see what it looks like. If you're a project maintainer, you can assign it to people, you can add different labels and projects and so on. Those are things I can't do because it's not my project. And as you can see, people can leave comments below and the conversation can get started. That's really important to have that conversation with the community and with the project maintainers. Next is where it gets really exciting, is the pull request tab. And to raise a pull request, you need to make a change in another branch. And that sounds scary, but I'm going to show you how straightforward it is and how simple you can do it in the GitHub UI. So these are open pull requests. So if I click on one, we can go have a look at the changes. So someone's written a good description. It's got checklists of things that they've done. I want to show you that in the Markdown section, how you can do that. And you can see more commits have gone in, and another comment, and all from a bot, has also been applied. And you can see the commits that have happened. You can see the checks that have occurred. And we can also see the files that have been changed. The red ones are the ones that have been taken out, and the green ones with the lines that have been added. And then in dark red and in dark green show you specific characters that have been changed. And if you don't like this linear view, you can switch to split view, which shows the changes side by side. Let's make a change to this project. So to contribute to a project, let's find the file and the change we want to make. Using the GitHub UI, it's very straightforward. If I go to the git ignore, I notice some inconsistency with the formatting. So it's a silly change, but it will show the process for you. And it still adds value to the project. That's what you need to think about when making changes, is it's about adding value to a project. So you can see between all the sections, there's one line gap. Between this section, there's actually two. So it's inconsistent. I'm going to make a change to remove that extra line. To do this, you hit the edit button at the top right, and GitHub will automatically fork the project for you. So you create a fork for this project for you to commit your proposed changes to. Submitting a change will write it to a new branch in your fork so you can send a pull request. I suggest adding a title that makes sense from your changes. Now I hit propose change, and GitHub has automatically taken me to the pull request page with it pre-populated. If you come directly to the pull request tab and you have a branch that you want to create a pull request from, remember to click compare across forks. But GitHub in this situation knows I'm coming across from a fork, so it's already pre-populated that for me. I can see the changes that I made. I removed this extra blank line, and now I can go create pull request. And once I've gone through their template or put in some information, if there isn't a template, I can hit create pull request. And if you want to make any changes, you can click on the three dots and hit edit and make changes to the description. If you want to make changes to the code, you can go to files changed, and you can also hit edit. Any future commits that you make to this branch will automatically get added to this pull request while it's still open. If it's closed, then you'll have to raise a new pull request. If I head over back to my account and go to the repositories, you can see the freeCodeCamp repo or project is also now in my account. And it says that it's forked from freeCodeCamp. So I can actually follow back to the original repository, and people can find me from that repository. So again, it's social coding side. People can then discover you and discover projects via different people and different organizations. The Actions tab is effectively continuous integration on steroids, also known as CI. And every time there is an event or a change, this will run some actions, hence why it's called Actions. Actions can be tasks that run linters that check your code, or automated tests that also check the code, through to sending notifications to Slack or Discord. Actions is driven by a YAML file, and it's really, really awesome. So that's one thing I also highly recommend you getting into. And actually GitHub has a marketplace for actions. So you can see it almost has 5,500 actions for free that you can use on your projects, from sending notifications to linking different platforms together. And you can even write your own custom GitHub action in JavaScript or another language. If you click on one of these actions or one of these jobs, you can then see what is going on, and you can see the different steps. So if there is a failure, you can dig deeper and find out what went wrong. The great thing about this automation, it removes having discussions about little things, and then you get to focus on the more important discussions, on actually adding value to each other and learning from each other. In the security tab, there are suggestions for your project on improving the security. Do have a look at that. Do click on it. You can get more information. Also, in the insights tabs, it gives you insights on the project, on the contributors, on the community. You'll notice that a lot of projects are missing these steps, and you can contribute to the project by adding a code of conduct, by adding an issue template, etc. The last two tabs I want to show you are Discussions tab. This is a beta feature that is coming out very soon, and it's really awesome. So it still uses Markdown just like issues, but it's like issues on steroids because you can have threaded conversations. Think of forums. People can ask questions. It can be a question and answer. It could be general. It could be ideas. It could be show and tell. And also a new feature coming out shortly is for different projects to create different categories. But people can reply. People can mark an answer as accepted, and then people continue the conversation in underneath each other, so you can have different threaded conversations. The last tab on GitHub I wanted to show you is the Projects tab. This might look familiar. This might look like the Trello board. You can create different columns. They have templates that you can use. This is the Kanban one where you've got to do, in progress, in review, and done. And these are the issues that we created earlier, and when we can drag and drop them between different sections as we work on them. And that's really good for people to see the progress of the project. And if you want to add an issue from here directly, you can add a note and then convert it to an issue very simply. One more tab that is interesting is the Wiki tab. It allows you to write Markdown. Markdown's mentioned everywhere, as you've noticed, and have your documentation in the Wiki section. And it's a wiki. Underneath is actually a Git repo. So when you learn how to use a Git repo on the main repository, on the main project, you can actually use it on the Wiki too. I've actually honestly started using the Wiki less, not because I don't think documentation is important. I actually think it is very important, but I actually started putting the documentation in the code base under the docs folder. And the reason for that is when I add a new feature to the project, I actually add the documentation as part of that change, as part of that pull request. So when someone's reviewing the code changes, the automated test changes, they can also review the documentation changes. And that just keeps the quality of the project really high. But the wiki can also be used for documentation. It depends on your project and your team. I highly recommend, if it's an open source project, putting the documentation in the repo under the docs folder, because then it can go through a pull request and get reviewed. And not only to get reviewed, but also to get knowledge transfer between the team members and the community. So now you know how to use GitHub, let's talk about how to find a GitHub project that you can contribute to. You can contribute to any project, but let me show you some tips and tricks on how to find ones that are more inclusive, more welcoming. I mentioned some labels. So if you go to the issue tab on any repository, you can filter by the issue, like first timers only, but that limits you to one project. Another thing you can do is go to the issues at the top on GitHub. You can then see all the issues that you've created or been assigned, but you could also filter GitHub by a label. So it's label : Hacktoberfest. And you can do this by clicking on any label. So if you want to filter by good first issue, you can click on filter by good first issue. Now you can see all these different projects that have got a label with good first issue. Another really good way to find projects is on Twitter, the people you follow. Maybe they mention some inclusive projects that want some contribution, that will help you and mentor you get up to speed with their project. You're probably already using libraries in your project or using a framework. You'll know those quite well, or you've probably noticed bugs or missing documentation. Those are also good projects to contribute to. A real secret tip before contributing to a project that you're thinking about contributing to is actually check the closed issues and the closed pull requests. This is really important. See which ones were closed, and were they closed in a friendly and collaborative way? Did someone write, "Thank you very much for making this contribution, but unfortunately this doesn't match with X, Y, and Z," or was it just closed with no comment? So therefore the contributor doesn't realize why their changes were not accepted. It's really important to contribute to an inclusive project, because otherwise it will be disheartening if your hard work gets closed for no reason. If it's something they don't want, which is why you should raise an issue first, then at least there's a good reason why it wasn't accepted, and they hopefully have given you motivation or an idea of other things you can contribute to in the future to have it accepted and merged. Another tip that I found recently that I really want to share with you is, if you found a project that you want to contribute to, for example, this one, search the project for to-dos. A lot of the time people put to-dos in the projects and never actually raise the issue, and these to-dos get forgotten about. Maintainers and the community will really appreciate if you find a to-do, raise an issue, and if you can make the change and make the improvement to remove the to-do, everyone will really appreciate it. Let's go through the Markdown basics so that you know how to write a really good issue and really good pull request so you can stand out. It's important for you to know the 8 different Markdown syntax. A single hash is a heading 1, and that gets converted to a H1 in HTML. And you can do 2 hashes to create a heading 2, and that goes all the way down to heading 6, so that would be 6 hashes. Then you can write normal text, and then if you want something bold, you would wrap it in double asterisks on either side. And if you want italic text, it's a single asterisk on each side. If you want a strike through, it's double tilde on both sides. Let's have a look how that renders. And you can see, preview it how it renders. What other awesome things can you do? So you can also do lists. So we can do an unordered list. This is item 1, item 2, with a sublist, sub item 2b. We can preview that, and you can see how it's indented with the sublist as well. And we can also do an ordered list. And a trick here is not to do them 1, 2, and 3, is actually just to do 1 on all of them. And you may think, why? The secret is the GitHub will do the rest for you. And therefore, if you move any items around, you don't have to keep renumbering them all the time. As you can see, it reads 1, 2, 3. And GitHub also uses that on the issue lists and the pull requests. And it's really important to give an overview of an issue or pull request, what stage it's at, how much progress has been done. And the way you do that is with square brackets and a space in it. So you can say item 1 incomplete. But if we want to make item 2 complete, we put an X in it, and this would be complete. You don't have to write the word incomplete, but you can see now item 2 is checked and item 1 is not. If you want to put links in, you can just paste the link, but it might look out of place. So if you actually want to put text that is shown that is linkable, then you would put square brackets for the text that you want appeared. So in this case, freeCodeCamp. And then in the brackets, you put the link where you want it to go to. So if you hit preview, you can see it is still a link and it still goes to the same place. It's more readable and more friendly. And if you have an image that you want to display, you can just put an exclamation in front of it, and the writing in the square bracket will be the alt text, and then in the brackets will be the path to the image, and that can be a local path or a URL off the internet. If you really want your issue and pull request to stand out, you can also look at doing code blocks and tables. Let me show you. So the first row is actually the title, and we need to tell the Markdown how the table is going to be rendered. Is it going to be left aligned, centered, or right aligned? And you can do that with colon and 3 dashes is what I recommend. You can actually do more dashes to make the table look easier to read. However, as you change the column sizes with different content, these will never be accurate. So I wouldn't worry about trying to make the right number of dashes to suit the column, because it's always going to change the width as you add and remove different content. So we can left align the first column, and let's right align the second column. And now we can put in the first row. So we can say row 1A, and then we can say row 1B. And you separate these by pipes. And now if I hit preview, you can see the table has come through. And you can see column 1 is aligned to the left and column 2 is aligned to the right. And you can also center align by putting colon either side of the dashes. And now you can see row 1B is now centered. Code blocks. This is where it's really important to have your issue and pull request stand out by using code blocks. And there are so many different things you can do with code blocks, with things like syntax highlighting, or even diffs is epic. Let me show you. So for inline code, you use a single backtick. This is backtick, and you can say console.log. And when you preview that, it shows it in gray. It's not very fancy, it doesn't stand out massively. So if you wanted to stand out more, we could say example code block. You do 3 backticks, and then you put in the same code, and you close it with 3 backticks. Now you can see it's a big block, it's full width, stands out a lot more, but it's still not syntax highlighted. So you can do things after the first 3 backticks. You can do things where you put in the language. So if it's Markdown, or if it's JavaScript or TypeScript or Ruby or PHP or Python, whatever it is. And when you render it, it actually highlights it. This doesn't show it very well, but you can see the log has changed a different color. And if you're adding and removing things and you want to show what changes there should be, then rather than doing 2 blocks, like for example, if I said const data equals this, if you want to show the differences before and after in, say, an issue or in a discussion, then to have 2 code blocks is quite verbose. Let me show you, and show you a really awesome way to look really professional. So we have 2 code blocks. They are syntax highlighted, but you can see before and after. It's not very easy to see what changed. You're just going to notice the brackets have changed from an array to an object. But the way to look awesome, you can combine that into 1 code block. And the way you do that is you put both of them in the same code block, and actually the type becomes a diff rather than the language. The line you want to take away, you put a minus, and the line you want to add, you put a plus. And when you render that, you can see it's really highlighting what you want to remove and what you want to change to. And that's really awesome. It's so awesome and so powerful that actually when you're reviewing someone's pull request, rather than saying, oh, you need to change this bracket or something like that, you can actually put in a diff in an inline comment and the other person can just hit accept, and GitHub will take that diff, apply it to that branch and pull request. So it makes it become very slick and very efficient. Even with a linear conversation on GitHub, some people write a big block of text and you might be saying yes or no, and it's unclear to which part of the paragraph you're saying. So it is possible to do quotes, and I highly recommend that. And what I mean by quotes is this. If someone wrote, I have idea 1 and also idea 2. If someone wrote they had 2 ideas in the paragraph and you wanted to say yes to idea 1 and no to idea 2, if you just said, you would have to write yes and no, and maybe it wasn't so obvious which ones you're referring to. So one thing you can do, if that's what someone wrote, when you reply, you can quote what they said and it appears in the quote. But even better, you could split it apart, remove the and, have 2 quotes. I agree with this. I do not agree with this. And so when you preview it, it's really obvious to know what you were replying to. Otherwise, the next comment that comes back is, which one did you mean? It wasn't very clear. So it's really important to keep things efficient on GitHub. And that will help you with chatting on Stack Overflow, on Discord, on Slack, because it's important to give enough information, but not give too much that it's a book like War and Peace. Because some people wonder why they ask questions and they don't get answers. It's because their question isn't very good and people don't want to try and dig in and get blood out of a stone. If you can make it really easy for someone to understand your question, your idea, your bug, then it's more likely you're going to get help. Having good communication, be it an issue, be it on social media, be it on Discord or Slack, is a great way to get noticed and to get into the conversation. Another tip on a pull request is, you probably have raised an issue for that pull request. So I highly suggest closing the issue when the pull request gets closed or merged. And the way you do that is you put a hash, a bit like the heading title, but without a space, you put in the number that you want to reference to. And then before that, you put closes or fixes. And you can write more after this, but when this gets merged, closed, then it will also close the issue. It reduces the admin for the community and the maintainer, and that's really important. Put yourself in their shoes. Try and make their life easier when they're getting lots of comments, suggestions, pull request issues. You want to make it as efficient for them as possible. And remember, you don't have to contribute a big pull request. You need to keep it efficient and small. As a project maintainer myself, I would rather have more pull requests that are small because I can merge them very quickly in bite sizes rather than trying to spend an entire day going through someone's huge pull request. So if you want to get your pull request merged, I suggest keeping it small and concise. I really believe there is no pull request that is too small. Let me give you another little gem on pull requests. If you want to get feedback on your work sooner, then I suggest raising the pull request, but do this gem. As you can see here on the right, under the reviewers section, you can convert your pull request to a draft. And that's really important. It shows the community and project maintainers that you would like some feedback, but it's not ready for the proper review to get merged in. So getting that feedback early is really important. Start that conversation in the issues, and when you've made changes, start it early in the pull request, but don't forget to convert it to draft so people know that it's not completely ready. Otherwise, you're going to get lots of comments of things you might not have quite finished yet. And that's why it's important to have a checklist in the description as well. And then when it's ready to have a proper review and everything's finished, you can then convert it back to a normal pull request. And remember, I mentioned that doing a to-do list in your issue or your pull request shows the progress. As you can see, I have 4 to-dos and none of them are done, and you can see that the progress is 0. Other ones have got 4 out of 4. This really helps maintainers and the community look through the list of pull requests and see what's ready for reviewing. In this section, we're going to talk about how you can make money directly and indirectly from open source. GitHub now has a sponsorship program. And what that means is people can sponsor you, or you can sponsor people on the GitHub platform. And GitHub takes no commission. So if you sponsor someone $10 a month, they're going to get $10 a month. And to take that even further, GitHub were doing matching. That meant that if you sponsored someone $10 a month, GitHub would also give them $10 a month. So either they could get double, or you just half your donation and give the other half to somebody else, because GitHub will match it. And you've probably seen this sponsor button on organizations and people's profiles. So if you find an organization or a person that you really think they're doing great work in the community, you want to support them, click on that sponsor button and give them a small donation. Whatever you're comfortable with, they will really appreciate it. That's how you can make money directly from GitHub. So I suggest setting that up. It's free to set it up on your account. I highly recommend setting that up because you never know who wants to sponsor you. So that's the way you can make money directly from open source. Now let me talk about the ways you can make money indirectly. So I have mentioned about the networking and communication. If you do regular open source, people will then discover you. And by people, I mean companies, headhunters, HR departments, recruiters, hiring managers. They will discover you, and then they will contact you to offer you a job. So that's you getting money indirectly from open source. And that's really important. I do open source on GitHub and I do YouTube videos. And my biggest regret about both of those is not starting sooner, because they have both accelerated my learning, my career, my clients, the money I've earned. I cannot encourage you enough to do the same. Instead of you hunting for a job, instead of you writing a CV to match that job, why can't the companies chase you and not even ask for a CV because they love your GitHub profile? They love your community presence. So if you can write blog posts or do YouTube videos, I also highly recommend doing that to complement your open source. You can talk about what you've learned, what you're doing. You don't have to invent something new. You're probably learning something new every day. Just share that on GitHub or on socials, and do that little and often, and you will get discovered. Some techniques that I use when I'm hiring for myself or for my clients is I want to look at people's GitHub profiles. There's no surprise there, but I'm not looking how amazing their code is. So if your code isn't amazing, still put it out there. I'm actually looking at their code today and comparing it to their code 2-3 months ago. And all I care about is that the code has improved in that time, because that shows me the person is still learning. And that's more important than being an expert in one area. And also I'm looking for the person's attitude. How do they communicate and collaborate with other people? This is why I keep encouraging you to get involved in the conversation on other people's issues, on your issues, on other people's projects and your projects, so other people can contribute to your projects and start the conversation with you, and then you can communicate back. It's really important to see how people communicate, not only as a contributor but as a maintainer. I suggest getting involved in the conversation. If you're looking for resources to get involved in open source contribution, freeCodeCamp have an awesome community-driven project. You can see it behind me. There are almost 150 contributors to this project. That shows the value of this project, because it's showing different perspectives. People with different backgrounds are giving their opinion. So this project is going to add so much value. So let's have a quick look. There are translations of this project into so many different languages. So if English is difficult for you, then there are different languages that you can look at. They might not quite be up to date. And also, if you're familiar with some of these languages, or even just one of these languages, you could read the English version and update it to your language, which would really help the community. So that's a really awesome contribution you could give back to the community and to this project. This is translated into 11 languages. If you know any other languages, then feel free to make a contribution and translate it into that language. It makes our community even more inclusive. Even right at the beginning of the README, it says this is a list of resources for people who are contributing to open source. And if you find additional resources, please contribute a pull request. What a great way to start a README. It has blog posts from different people in the community, and I think some of these posts are really interesting. How to do searches. Searching on GitHub can be quite complicated. There are so many filters, tips and tricks that you can do. It's really convenient. There are links here to make it so much easier for us to filter down the issues on GitHub. For example, first timers only. And now you can see the issues across GitHub are filtered down with the label first timers only. And there are open source initiatives. Things like first timers only, first contributors, Hacktoberfest, and 24 pull requests, and 100 days of code. So do have a look at those. They are a great initiative to encourage you to get into open source. We've talked about contributing to open source, but what about project maintainers? Wait a second, before you get scared and say, hey, I'm new to open source, I can't be a project maintainer yet, I've barely contributed to open source. Everyone who's on GitHub is not only a contributor, they are actually a maintainer. So you are a maintainer. As soon as you have that one repo repo on GitHub that is public. It might just be to customize your GitHub profile, but that is an open source repo that anyone else in the community could raise an issue, raise a pull request, make suggestions to. So you are actually already an open source maintainer. And that's great because it's really good to practice the communication skills and the networking skills on the other side. So let's talk about how you can get your project to stand out. And you may think, why would I want my project to stand out? I'm a bit nervous, the project isn't ready. Trust me, your project will never be ready. These open source projects are living projects. They're having improvements done by you and the community all the time. So a project will never be ready. And people really like joining a project in the early days because they can help guide the direction of the project. Imagine waking up to 10, 12 pull requests of people who have made improvements to your project. It's such an awesome feeling to have that, to think, wow, people have actually spent their time and effort to make an improvement to my project, which then becomes our project. And you build a community around your project and you'll learn so much from it. People will make suggestions. You don't have to accept everything, but just by having the conversation, you will learn so much more around the technologies you're using in your project and libraries and frameworks that you might not even be aware of yet. To make your project more inclusive and more enticing for people to get involved and contribute, the first thing I recommend doing is going to the Insights tab. From the Insights tabs, you have a set of tabs down the left-hand side, and then go to the Community tab. From here, you can really see how you can make your project more inclusive. Does it have a description? Does it have a README? Does it have a code of conduct? Does it have the right templates for issues and pull requests? Does it have a license? And you can do this on other people's projects as well, so it's actually a really good way to contribute. Contributing to your own project regularly is actually really useful. It shows the GitHub algorithm that your project is alive, and all the stats on GitHub also look healthy, and people want to contribute to projects that are moving forward, not projects that are dead or archived without having the archive flag on the repo. So don't try and spend an entire weekend doing one giant commit to your project. I highly recommend every day, every few days, doing small changes to your project. Therefore, people can understand the changes that are happening. Do a commit for each value that you add to your own project. And if there are people who are more junior than you who want to get involved in your project, and even if you're new to tech, this is really valuable. Those people with a fresh pair of eyes will actually improve your project so much because they will show you and highlight what parts don't make sense for newcomers, and they might make sense to you because you built the project. So really embrace the feedback from the community and from people who are new to tech. Documentation is so important. That might scare you. You might think, I'm not going to write a whole book on my project because it's changing all the time. Documentation will get out of date. You don't have to write a whole book. Having a README that shows the goal of the project and has a quick start guide of how to get the project running locally so people can start making changes to your project and get involved. Having a screenshot in your README is really helpful. It straight away shows the benefit of the project. And if you can have it deployed somewhere so that people can go and have a play and check it out, it's also really important. You want to lower the barrier to entry so people can get involved in your project as easily and as quickly as possible. Automate everything as much as you can. For day one, you don't have to try and have a perfect automation pipeline, but do start automating things from the beginning. Now with GitHub Actions, it's really easy with a few lines of YAML config to have GitHub Actions, to run a linter on your project, to run any checks that you want or any checks that you might do manually. If you can automate these, then when you do have the conversations in the pull requests with your community, you're actually having the conversations about the more valuable part rather than about formatting or any of the simple checks that could be easily done with GitHub Actions. Another great tip I can give to you as a project maintainer is try to respond to people as soon as possible, ideally within 12 hours. And what I mean by that is if you haven't got time to review an issue or discuss it or to review a big pull request, at least comment and say, look, I'm really busy with work. I will try and reply this weekend. That at least the person who started the discussion, who raised the pull request, knows that you believe in your project and you're just busy at the moment. Another great thing about being a maintainer, when you're contributing to other projects, you also realize that a lot of these projects are done on the side. People don't do these as a full-time job. So if you don't get a response straight away, be patient. They haven't forgotten it. They've got the notification. Don't send them emails, Discord DMs, Twitter DMs with links to your issue or your pull request. They've got the notification. If you don't hear back from them within a few days, a week, then yes, by all means, do reach out to them. But don't spam them all within the first 10 minutes. To help your project get discovered, you need to be involved in other projects. And I don't just mean contributing code to other projects. As I've been saying the whole way along through this video, get involved in the conversation, reply to an issue, review someone's pull request and give your thoughts and feedback. And when they see you getting involved in the communication, they will go to your GitHub profile and they'll have a look at what projects you have. That's why it's also important to customize your GitHub profile. Let's take a look at mine. As you can see, I've customized my GitHub profile. I'm changing this all the time. And if you have any suggestions or any improvements, raise an issue, raise a pull request on my repository. To customize your GitHub profile, all you need to do is create a repo with the same name as your username, just like this. Go to the plus above and go to new repository and type in your username. What you see on the left, have the same on the right. I've done that already. So as you can see, I've got this here. And this README is what appears on my GitHub profile. And in here, you can put basic HTML and Markdown, and you can customize it regularly and often. And I do get contributions. You can see I've got 2 pull requests waiting to get reviewed. I really enjoy seeing people's ideas and suggestions for my customized GitHub profile. And I actually do also enjoy contributing to other people's GitHub profiles. In addition to customizing your GitHub profile, don't forget to pin the repositories that you're most active on your GitHub profile. You can customize your pins up here, and then you can select the repos that you want to be pinned. You can select up to 6. Open source and GitHub is actually more about collaboration and communication rather than just code. So it's important to get involved in the discussion because companies, people hiring want to see how you communicate, how you collaborate. Are you a team player? Do you work well with other people? Are you able to give constructive criticism to people in a friendly and encouraging way? And are you also able to take constructive criticism and collaborate with people to work to a better solution? If you want to get into open source so you can upskill, so you can learn faster, you can network, collaborate and improve your communication skills, and so you can get the job and money that you deserve, head over to my YouTube channel. I do videos and live streams helping you get into open source. We also have a Discord channel. We also have a GitHub organization. If you'd like to join our GitHub organization, you can raise an issue on our support repository asking to join the organization and we'll send you an invite. This way you can get involved in the community straight away. The best way to learn a spoken language is to go live in the country that speak the language that you want to learn. So come and join our community and open source will be like second nature to you.